kind of want to start from what you just chatted about, which is that you have awesome. Is it Awesome CX, right, Tim?
Correct.
Okay.
Awesome.
And tell me the difference because I see Awesome OS as
Yeah.
well too. What's
Yeah.
like? Give me that insight really quick.
So Awesome OS was a company that started probably about 8 years ago, a little bit more than 8 years ago. And it was an offshoot of some guys from the Honest Company. And they were really focused on providing customer support to startups. So it was like, think of a startup to support startups. That company has grown and grown and grown. Like I said, now we do probably 50 to 60 new kind of, let's call them startup and scale up organizations a year that we add to the portfolio. That company is called Awesome OS, was bought by Transcom, a global provider, 30,000 people around the world, and really filled that niche that Transcom needed at the younger, earlier stage market companies.
Okay.
And then what we've decided to do is in North America, actually America, Asia Pac, is to really focus on kind of blending the traditional large scale enterprise delivery that we do under Transcom with the
Okay.
Awesome delivery. And what we're able to do is amazing because we're focusing on middle-sized organizations. So maybe not American Express, but definitely some of the fintechs like Chime
Yeah.
and those, Albert. And we're able to provide a lot more flexibility with the rigor and discipline that's needed on those larger scale accounts.
Okay.
And so that's what we've now decided. Instead of having this Awesome OS and Transcom, we just decided to wipe it clean, bring those together, and go forward facing called Awesome CX.
And so,
Brian,
okay.
in the future, I could see us even maybe changing it one more time because right now I'm playing around with this whole idea of awesome AI, and what I'm kind of calling awesome intimacy, which is a riff on AI, obviously.
Yes.
And how do we go from a company that was really focused on culture to now a company that blends culture, rigor, and discipline, to a company that blends culture, rigor, and discipline, and then arms all of its agents with AI tools to create more meaningful relationships with customers. That's kind of the vision that we're going on right now.
Awesome.ai. I'm not going to look it up. If you could find that domain and that's available, I would take it. And I'll make sure you look that up before we publish this recording live because that's to me sounds like a $10 million domain name. Okay, so on that note, actually, like tell me a little bit about who would be a great client or is a great client right now that is a perfect fit for, let's say, Awesome CX right now. Can you like talk to me about like who that client would be like?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question because we think we're unique in the marketplace because we can support brands that maybe are fresh out of Shark Tank and just want 5-10 people, right? Even 2 people.
When you say 5-10 people, you mean agents?
Yeah, 5 or 10 agents,
Okay.
right? That's small. And that want month-to-month contracts and really flexible, terms and so forth. So we can support those. And we've seen, frankly, some of those grow. Like there's a company called Freshly that went from 7 people to 250 during the pandemic, delivering home, food at home. A company called Pair Eyewear that was actually on Shark Tank. They provide glasses and then frames that snap on top. I think we started with 7 people there, and we're about 150 people with Pair Eyewear.
Oh, wow.
So that provides this almost like an incubation for companies that are trying to grow and need some support on customer service.
Yeah.
So that's one piece. Every year we're going to add 1, 2, 3 of these big enterprise companies. This year we added maybe 700 people at Pinterest and doing content moderation, that type of thing.
Oh, wow.
So we have Samsung, we have UPS, we have Comcast, a lot of these big name companies. And then there's almost everything in between. And that's what we'll grow maybe 20 to 30 a year on. And that's what I call scale up companies. Like I said, some great fintech companies. One is named Albert as an example. So again, we're not going after the big American Expresses, but we go after some that are trying to disrupt that industry. And they can be fashion companies, like textiles, a great one there. I think we have probably 400 people and we add another 200 during holiday season.
Yeah.
And that's Fabletics, which you've heard of with Kate Hudson, and Savage
Yep.
X Fenty, which is Rihanna. And we have Walmart.com and just a ton that are in that middle space. So we're unique in
Okay.
that we don't go after these just massive organizations, because we think that you really want that blend. And frankly, that's where I like about Kustomer, right? Because you guys are really focused on that mid. In fact, one that we have together that we share is SKIMS. How
Yes.
great is that one for both of us, right?
Yes. It's a
The
perfect
Kardashian
fit.
success, and they started out small and they're growing pretty quick. So I think that's a space that you can differentiate yourself, Kustomer, with the products that you're making.
Yeah.
And we can differentiate with the type of people, the type of service that we're providing, and create a solution that is unique for each one of those customers, like in the case of SKIMS. And I think that's a space that's perfect for us to be playing in.
So walk me through really quick. What are the let's take the examples of the let's say the Freshlies that you just gave as an example as a merchant. What are the pain points that they're feeling that lead them to looking at Awesome CX?
It's a great question. I think, if you look at the smaller ones, their pain points are they're starting to take off, right? And get a heck of a lot more customers, and they need more structure around their customer support. They need tools like yours to drop in very quickly and start, holding their customer support team accountable for results.
Yeah.
That's a big pain point for the smaller ones. And frankly, they're looking for flexibility. How quickly can you start? Is it a month to month? Because they don't know where their business is going to be next year. They didn't know where it was last year. And so
Right.
you and I need to work very creatively with them. Then there's the second group, which is this middle-sized group, and their biggest challenge is they're scaling. And so they need more structure, more rigor, without losing that extension of their brand, without losing that amazing culture that they feel and that the company was built on.
Sure.
And that's where they're looking for more creative features from your team. And that's where your team comes in and starts to build those creative features. And that's when they need more rigor and discipline from our team, where we take some of the things that we're doing, whether that's around workforce management or training or hiring that we do for some of the big accounts, and surgically implement those to those fast growing accounts. And
Okay.
then you have the bigger folks that, as you always know, they're looking at reducing costs. And
Yes.
it used to be a race to the bottom with dollars and cents, but now it's a race to embrace AI in new ways to improve the way they
Yeah.
work with their brands
And
or
to
their customers.
differentiate themselves too.
Yeah,
So, no, that's super interesting because, and I like how you kind of divided it up into three different sections because what your section was, I'm sorry, your section two was, is usually the first thing I think about, which is that, hey, you're scaling and all the attention is on like the marketing side and the growth side and all right, like the volume and how much are we selling daily, when it's almost like I think a lot of merchants are like, okay, someone just needs to take on customer service for us. Like I can't think about that. And would you debate me on that? Like, or would you say like, no, it's actually like, it's not take this off my plate. It is like, how can you supplement and really expand on my customer service to what you were saying be a main differentiator, right? Just because I always go back to like, is it a focus for the founder of the company that's usually all about growth,
yeah.
or is it not?
I wouldn't debate you on it. I would say, because I after I left Accenture, I started my own company. And I think founders, I know this to be true when I was doing it, they are really focused most of the time on their product that they've created, whether that's
Mm-hmm.
fashion
Yep.
or whether that's a technology or what have you. And trying to achieve that vision, that inspiration that had them, that they had when they started this company. Um, and often they really focus on the things to get that product out first, right? If it's a hardware, okay, what's the logistics piece? What's the manufacturing piece? How am I getting this to my customer? It's, how do I create the partnerships to get me to market quicker? Do I have to have some kind of licensing agreement with the Disney World of the world? But they quickly realize that if they're successful, they're now going to have to start engaging with their customer in more ways than just selling them the product. And that's where support needs to be there. And oftentimes they do that too late.
Yeah.
And then they're frantically running because they're overwhelmed. Their call centers, their support desks are just completely overwhelmed. And so that's where we, are the being flexible is really key and transparent to any founder. And being able to say, listen, we're going to take on what you're doing right now. We're going to throw in and put in customer. It's going to be great because you'll be able to use it now in an easy way, but it'll scale for you in the future at every stage of growth. And we're going to be an extension of your team so that you can focus on what you need to grow the business. And it's an easy discussion, and it's one that, many people learn the hard way. But, if you can do it in a flexible way so they're not overburdened with a, super heavy, expensive support staff, then I think it makes all the difference in the world for them.
That's great insight. And I really do appreciate the response of the founder thinks about the product. And it's so kind of like, well, duh. But I'll be selfish, as a marketer, I've been in the space that has sold marketing technology. I've been in the space that now has sold customer support technology. And it's so fascinating to me because it's like I would say before 2020, before COVID, it seemed to me that it was really easy to sell technology if you were in the marketing space because it was all about return on investment and it's all about growth and like, okay, how is this going to help me sell more? And then COVID hit and it switches and it's like now it's about the retention. I know you guys talk about retention a lot and the customer lifetime value. And I have seen a pivot where it's like, yes, the customer support software and any technology that helps the customer experience is actually like accelerating in the amount that a company spends on that sort of technology. And so to me, that's fascinating. And it's interesting to see how that plays out. But let's kind of move forward to what we're actually here to talk about is AI in the customer experience. And I know you have a lot of insight here. And so I guess the first thing to mention is that, and I hate to say this again, but it was when ChatGPT really kind of first came out, what is it, back in November of 2022 or October of 2022. And One of Sam Altman's first interviews, I think they asked him like, well, what do you think is the industry that's going to change, the first with all this new technology? And of course the answer was customer support, customer service.
Yeah.
So to put this on you now, Jim, like, when did you really start like, all right, there's something here that we have to start exploring, educating, and learning tons more about because this is going to change the industry? Like, has it been recent or have you been diving into this well before 2023?
No, I mean, for me, it's been recent. For us, it's been recent. I mean, everything's changed in like the last 7-8 months, right? I mean, even if you look at customers' requests, earlier this year is, maybe in January, February, if you were responding to questions or even a proposal and you said, would you like to hear our thoughts on AI? They're like, no. Just tell me how much a person is. Tell me how many, based on how many people I need and give me a number. And that's been kind of this industry. And I feel like that's why it's been on this downward spiral, pricing wise, consolidation of companies and all that kind of stuff, just for survival. Nowadays, if someone wants to talk like an RFP and you say, do you want to hear some of our AI ideas? They'd be like, yeah, if you don't include that, don't even bother responding. Right.
Yeah.
And
that's fascinating.
In a world that's been dominated by budget and budget cuts, now for the first time, we're seeing massive spend in software and in investment and even in people if it's tied to AI. And I think it's because there's a massive shift. And honestly, we don't know who the winner is going to be. I mean, think back in the days when browsers came out and Netscape was the best, right?
Right.
And then shortly after that, Microsoft came out with Explorer, and then, Netscape died. And then the next thing you know is Safari, and now it's Chrome, right? So we
Yep.
don't know who's going to be, or I don't know who's going to be the last person standing. Frankly, if I did, I'd be investing in them and not sitting, no offense, not sitting on the phone here. But, in my opinion, there's going to be a wave of, in this world before AI, and especially in CX, and the world after AI. Similar to when the internet was introduced and companies are trying to figure out how do they sell, how do they market, how do they support on the internet. I mean, that was back in 1994, 95. And then no one even thinks twice. Internet's just part of everything they do. Same with these things. There was life before we had, this iPhone,
Yep.
which is a flip phone or a BlackBerry. And now the flip phones or the Blackberries are, interesting shows on Netflix that you're watching the history of that. So I think it's going to have a massive impact. The way we see it is it's an amazing opportunity for us. And I think for you guys as well. I mean, look, if you're these behemoths, right? You pick your BPO company, but if you have 400,000 people and AI is coming down the path, and AI, arguably, you pick your number, will affect 10%, 20%, 30, 40%. Those are big numbers that you're going to be losing out on, especially if you've been
Yes.
winning based on low price.
Yep.
If you're this behemoth software company that's got all this legacy crap associated with it, right? And you need to somehow embrace add-ons of AI, right? And you're trying to recreate it yourself, you're in a tough situation. Because how are you going to get all these amazing developers to work for a legacy company when they can make so much money, more money working for some of these new innovators?
Sure. Sure.
So I think it's a time for companies like you guys that are in this mid-market and that are really scrappy now, and companies like ours that are 30 to 40,000 people, to really kind of change the game and actually grow our footprint if we can make sure that all of our agents are armed with a co-pilot sitting right next to them, which is like an AI superpower.
Yeah. So I know you talked to me about larger enterprises that you work with, the startups that are just starting to scale, and even these mid-market companies like a SKIMS. Um, if you, I guess, are you getting more questions about AI and thoughts from the enterprise companies, from the up and coming, from the mid-market? Is it pretty just much everywhere at this point? I'm just
Everywhere.
curious, like, where do you think? Okay,
It's
it's
everywhere
everywhere.
because some of the younger companies are more, and disruptive companies are more technology savvy, let's call them, right? Um, than some of the more enterprise companies. Um, and I think of AI in three areas, right? One is, let's call it an autopilot. Some call it a bot.
Okay.
One is called Copilot, which is, some might call it agent assist. And then there's the
Yeah.
insights that you're going to get from it. Um, right now, a lot of the younger companies have chatbots that they got maybe a year ago, 2 years ago. And so they're in the market, and within the next 6 months, they're going to have a new AI chatbot that's replacing what they had before. And ideally, if they do it right, they're going to get one that's on a bigger platform that will integrate with their Copilot going forward. So the younger ones are really, the smaller companies are really focused on how do they get rid of their legacy autopilots, their legacy chatbots, and get something new and more innovative, and will not just deflect things that are coming from the customers, but really embrace the questions that the customers have in an
Mm.
automated way. But then there's bigger companies like UPS is a great example that are trying to say, okay, how do we integrate a more meaningful autopilot experience if I'm trying to track my package as an example. And then if it has to get passed over to an agent, how do I make sure that they have a superpower that's on their screen next to them, that
Right.
if they're reading an email or a chat that kind of says, okay, here's what my recommended response would be. So I can look at it and just hit send. And when I'm done, it can wrap everything up for me on the back end. So I'm much more productive. I'm much more engaged with the customers, creating those relationships in a new way.
From your standpoint, do you think agents will embrace the co-pilot? Will there have to be a lot of education involved, or is it like no, they're ready for something like this?
I asked. It's a great question, Brian. I asked our team in the Philippines, And I said, what do you guys think of when I mention AI, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't expect this, but almost every answer was fear, was the bottom line across it. I'm not going to have a job, mass layoffs, no one's going to need agents anymore, all of this kind of stuff. And I sat back and I'm like, holy cow, everyone is like scared shitless on all this stuff. How do we help embrace them and use this technology to give to them so that they can be more effective in this post AI world than to be kind of, a tragic result of this revolution that's going on right now?
Yeah.
And so the tools that I'm most keen on are the ones that are going to integrate, like with customer as a great example, right? And when they're using your email or even voice, and they're looking at your desktop, they can integrate more effectively so that the agent knows how to use them, and it integrates on the back end systems, pulls things together.
Right.
And if you guys can do that, and the AI teams can do that, companies can do that together, the agents are there. I mean, they want the support. They
Yeah.
don't. I mean, if you think about it, if you're an agent, you don't want to be doing a wrap up on a call, right? It's like when
No.
if you're a
Like the
policeman, you don't want to be
salesperson.
sitting in the office doing
Yeah.
a wrap up. You want to be on the streets. If you're a salesperson, you want to be in someone's office selling, not back in the office kind of wrapping stuff up. So if you
Right.
can do that all in an automated way, and I think that and then, if you can help the agent understand the tone of the person that they're going about to talk to or communicate with, and help them be more empathetic and passionate about what how they can help solve their problems, I think they're eager for that. But most of all,
Yeah.
they're afraid of the unknown. And so right now everyone is like, talking on their soapboxes about how there's not going to be any more agents in the world. I just don't believe that. I think there's always going to be people and agents. And so if you can give them tools that make them more efficient, more effective, and enjoy their jobs more, I think that's a win across the board.
Yeah, I think so too. And I could see though that, let me just play devil's advocate, right?
Sure.
Which is, if I was an agent and you're like, hey, here's your co-pilot. This is awesome, right? Like, go ahead, use it. My thought is like, is this a stepping stone? Like, is this a stepping stone of like, okay, now I got the co-pilot next to me, and it's probably learning everything that that it can't do that I'm doing in the moment, right? And so I can understand where the fear comes from of like, this is fantastic. It's building so much efficiency, but of course someone's going to want a little more efficiency and a little more efficiency. That's how business works. But just an interesting time. Like to your point, like it is really interesting because it doesn't. No one knows exactly what direction it's going to head into, I think, yet.
Yeah. I mean, but what's nice about it is whenever you have these like technology revolutions, and it could be, as we talked about earlier, the browser, it could be the internet in general, it could be cell phones or iPhones,
Mm-hmm.
could be cloud computing, right? It could be this technology that we're talking on today, Zoom and all that, conferencing. Like I said, there's this world afterwards, and you're still interacting with people. And so, if I had hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people that I was paying a low wage to, and charging a little, low amount to, would I be scared? Yes. But I think there's always going to be need for these people that can use those tools efficiently and effectively.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think you guys are in that perfect market segment to start integrate, to continue to integrate, because I know you're already doing some great things on the AI front. And then I think we have the right culture and the right structure to really make that successful from a people standpoint.
Yeah. And you can't forget about like the swinging pendulum where, let's say, a whole bunch of merchants and companies do sway more towards AI, AI, AI. How do you stand out from your customer experience? Well, you could provide a really high touch, hands on experience as a company, and now you're standing out from the rest, because there's always going to be those situations. I mean, I was just talking to a hotel the other week of changing different dates like last minute, and an AI bot could not help me. I needed to talk to someone in person, and I just have to put it on the record of like I think those moments will always exist, and it's important to like try to figure out how to incorporate them. And we'll kind of see how it goes. And so I did want to talk to a little bit about security and regulations as well too, because this is something that you brought up earlier. We were discussing back and forth via email, but I've noticed a really interesting take on the larger companies. It's just can't like we can't just experiment with AI. Like we really need to build some regulations and security around this before taking any step in that direction. In your experience so far, have you seen the same thing where there's at least those hesitations for larger or even smaller companies
Yeah.
to understand what even training data and all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think, in early days of when ChatGPT, earlier this year was out, I think everyone was embracing it and, using it here, using it at work in this way. We even had, maybe some agents were, looking it up on different things.
Sure.
And then, as you said, this pendulum swing all the way back, and companies are like, whoa, hang on a second, stop this. You're giving
Yeah.
all of our information out to everyone to use. How do I know that you're responding in the right way? And so I think there's two levels. One that we're seeing play out on the government, in the government around, better control, better monitoring of what's going on and regulations, which I think is important. But in the corporate world, there's this concept of sanctioned AI, and I think that's going to be, really important. And I think the companies that are using these shared large language models are not going to be able to do that going forward because everyone is giving information into it. And pick your company. If you're a Delta Airlines and you're trying to change your flight, and you say, okay, what's the next flight out? And you get all these American airlines list. That's not going to bode well for Delta Airlines. And that's just, it's just silly. And then you also have the risk of people that are intentionally trying to mess around with your systems. Look at everything that's happened when you have all these companies. MGM, for example, recently just had a hack in for all of their customer data. They had to shut down all their systems. So during that period of time, if you were checking in at MGM, you had to check in, manually at all those hotels in Vegas. So that's just what we've seen in the past. Now, with all these LLMs out there, if they're not protected in the right way, think of all the hackers that are going to go try to, go in and train that app,
Yep.
that chat that you were in before when you were trying to, change your hotel, and nefarious things can come out of that. So I think you have to really be careful with what you're doing from a security standpoint.
Yeah. It leads me to, I don't want to say a question, but a comment that could maybe turn into a question. But it's like, I just started thinking that when people are interacting with bots, I think as a customer interacting, say, with a merchant that has a bot on their website or an AI tool, the thought is like, I'm not interacting with the company. I'm interacting with this tool. And I'm curious just in the future if like that mentality will still keep where it's like, I got a bad answer, like I got to talk to someone, or if people will start thinking like, no, this is the company, this experience is on the company, it's not on the tool. Here, just what do you think of that? Right?
Okay,
Do you know what I mean by that? Like, it's super interesting to me to think about it because it's like when I'm talking to a bot, I'm like, okay, I'm not talking to a person, not talking to this company, I'm talking to this tool right now. Let's see what it says. But I'm curious if it actually will develop into like, I am talking to the company. I know this is an AI bot, but this is the company I'm talking to. And if I get a poor answer, I'm going to blame it on like not the tool. I'm going to blame it on the company.
I think that's going to be the case. And I also think that we're going to start to see this not just be interacting with a bot, but more of an um, immersive experience. Like, I mean, if you think about your phone, when these things were put out, right? I think he said, what do you say? Phone, internet, music, or whatever. And now everything
Yeah.
kind of seamlessly goes on at
Yeah.
one point. So I can be listening to a song on here. I can be doing my email and I can switch over and hit a chat. I mean, there's a million things. And at the same time, playing Wordle on your phone. And I think that's going to kind of be the future of this customer support, autopilot and copilot stuff where, I might be, we're kind of thinking of bots on our computers on the internet, but what if you're actually talking to it on your phone? And
Yeah.
then while you're talking, it's pulling up, oh, these are the rooms that you're looking at switching in. Okay, which one
Yeah.
would you like? And I can select it. So now I'm talking, I'm looking, I'm pointing, I'm touching. It's just a more holistic
Yeah,
situation.
you're right. It's an immersive experience across different, several different channels.
And then even
Oh,
then you could like spin across, okay, hey Brian, it's I know you want to change your rooms. Here's the rooms that are available, and you're kind of sliding through. Oh, tell me more about this one. Well, the blah blah blah, and
yep,
then you hit, enter, and you're off to the races. I don't know what I just did
yep.
with my phone, but
uh, yeah, and it comes down if that's the case, which I agree with you. I think that's the case. It really does come back to data and the ability to have that data organized in your platform of choice because your bot's running entirely off of that. It will know if you have an open room, if you don't have an open room, what rooms are available. And if you don't have your platform and your data ready to have the bot like built off of it, and then you're probably behind from the start there. Super interesting, you know?
yeah, and that's why I think that the bots, the autopilots that are going to be selected this next round, they have to be on a platform, right? That's an enterprise grade platform because it's more than just
Mm-hmm.
answering a simple question. It's going to be pulling data from, in the case that we talked about, your reservation system.
Yep.
It's going to have to work with your financial systems if you're actually taking a reservation and order that type of thing. Um, so all of that type is, you see in your in customers, architecture and enterprise structure. So it's going to have to live on that autopilot structure as well.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Well, Jim, like I appreciate your time on this. I know we've discussed at least for 30 plus minutes, 40 plus minutes, and I feel like we could go for longer because we're just kind of touching on the AI stuff. Who knows what's to come there? But from all of us, thank you for your time, and then maybe we'll continue the discussion later on.
My pleasure. Look forward to talking more.